What do all of these parts have in common? I'm going to be putting them in an Axial RYFT in this episode of My RC. Today, we're going to check out this RYFT kit and get it going in all of its box stock kit glory. Inside this big box, you'll find everything wrapped and protected for shipping, but it's also conveniently packaged and step-by-step following along with the instructions and their numeric system. So it's actually quite easy to put these things together. You'll find that everything seems to be pretty high quality. Back to that a little bit later. And also goes together pretty smooth if you just follow the instructions step by step. You will end up with a truck just like the one on the cover of the box. Everything about this Axial kit screams heavy-duty, rock-bouncing craziness. However, when you actually get this thing out on the trail, be warned, those glass-filled rod ends, the glass-filled plastic rod ends that come on these nice stainless links, are a little bit fragile for the big jumps. So if you're going to be bashing hard, you might want to switch over to the regular non-glass-filled link ends right here at the assembly level. The heavy-duty transmission is filled with metal gears and can be built with a 2-speed option, which I did, of course, and then immediately regretted it on the test run. The second gear just did not engage very smoothly with the truck on the ground, so you kind of had to lift it up in the air and joggle the wheels back and forth, and it did go into second gear, and it was a lot of fun when it stayed in second gear. My final thoughts on this kit as I close out the build was that some of the parts not that difficult to assemble, just a little bit awkward where you almost need a third hand to actually put it together. Other than that, it's a pretty high quality kit and it has fun little details like little molded in nuts on the differential housings and the driver figures, and those types of little details are always fun. You'll notice that I take it pretty easy on this first lap, and that's actually because when I got done assembling it, I broke it within 15 minutes on the very first test drive. One of those glass-filled rod ends that I was talking about earlier. They're a little fragile and they break pretty easy, but I did take a pretty big jump and didn't have it on camera. Horizon actually has a very good warranty system where you just hit them up within the first year of owning your kit if you buy it from a authorized retailer, and they send you a new piece. It's pretty awesome, and it's been pretty quick for me. I've gotten my parts within 2 days, 3 days tops, with them replacing parts for warranty. So some notes about running this truck out of the box is that this chassis is intended to have a Spectrum radio system with the AVC. So it's pretty loose. It's difficult and unwieldy to drive straight out of the box and requires some tuning to make it drive in a reasonable fashion for the type of driving we're going to be doing, which won't be stereotypical rock bouncing. So my setup here is a 10.5 turn GP motor on 3S with the Hobbywing Quick Run ESC, and it's pretty fast in second gear. When it's in gear, it is fast. First gear is it's about right for this type of driving, but what's the fun of about right? You just want to blast everywhere warp speed. As I get a little bit more comfortable with the idea of driving this truck rough, you can see that I sped it up a little bit over some of the obstacles. But the loose nature of this truck is much more noticeable in second gear than it is in first gear. Honestly, after getting a couple of good laps in with this thing up to a decent pace, it's actually pretty hardy as long as you're not abusing it. So, I gotta give this thing an 8 out of 10 in a toughness, just because it did take some pretty good knocks without actually popping those ball ends out. Not extreme bashing, but being just a little bit conscious about the truck's fragility. Here it looks like we have a Challenger coming out onto the track, Grandpa BB and his blue Wendigo. Let's see how these trucks run next to each other. You can see he has that thing set up with a pretty peppy motor and battery, pulling wheelies up off the bank there. So in the end, this truck ended up being a little bit labor intensive for the runtime, in my opinion, for a truck that's not really my style. So I gave the keys over to Grandpa BB. So in the next episode, when you do see this truck, it's going to be his twist on it instead of mine. So be sure to hit that bell, hit that subscribe button, and come and check out the next couple episodes on this riff, because he's got that truck working kind of the way it should. And he's going to let us all know how it happens. Alright guys, so we're going to run this against Grandpa BB's Wendigo here, and then the next truck up will be Amber driving the Rift against Grandpa BB driving the Red Cat Camo. You guys have a good weekend, and be safe.
actually pretty nice when you line it up. Yeah, it was fun. We used to cut it in half to put a good piece of carpet on it. Oh, wait, what's up? Oh, you dropped the
Alright guys, well that was the Axial RYFT test laps with mostly Amber BB driving. I drove it a little bit, Grandpa BB drove it a little bit, I think. And, you know, after the 25-minute test drive, not even, probably more like 15-minute test drive that it broke on the first drive that I didn't film because I didn't think it would break that quickly, and do the repair, it is kind of a cool kit. It drives pretty good, but it's kind of fragile. You know, it's supposed to be a rock bouncer, but the link ends pop off pretty easily. This time a drive shaft came apart. I do have a 10.5 turn motor in it. That's about a 4200 kV, and it says to put a 2200 in it, but I'm also running on 3S instead of 4. So, you know, give and take. And then I also have the 13 tooth pinion in it, which was the smallest pinion that would fit without issues with the gear mesh.